Selamat berjumpa kembali para pemirsa dimanapun Anda berada.
Ya kan? Isu menarik sekarang ini adalah memberikan jawaban kenapa Pelosi sebagai Ketua Konggres Amerika Serikat itu menuju atau berkunjung ke Taiwan.
By the time she touched down, tensions were ratcheting up. An American this senior on this soil is provocative. Tonight, China has launched a joint military operation around the island, including firing long-range ammunition and testing guided weapons. It is a display of military might as well as anger.
The US and Taiwan have colluded to make provocations first, and China has only been compelled to act out of self-defense. In the face of the US's unscrupulous behavior in defiance of China's repeated and serious complaints, any countermeasures China is taking will be justified and necessary.
Arriving to applause in the capital, Taipei, Nancy Pelosi said, "Our congressional delegation's visit to Taiwan honours America's unwavering commitment to supporting Taiwan's vibrant democracy. America's solidarity with the 23 million people of Taiwan is more important today than ever as the world faces a choice between autocracy and democracy." The United States continues to oppose unilateral efforts to change the status quo.
It's pretty hard to get her to back down once something becomes a public dispute. And certainly by the time this became a topic as to whether she should go or not, it was already too late, knowing the speaker, to persuade her otherwise. And it probably wasn't in our interest at that point to let China talk us out of it, even if maybe it would have been better that she not go at all in the first place.
Adapun narasumber yang kami rasakan penting setelah kami melakukan research adalah untuk bisa memberikan jawaban kenapa Pelosi, Ketua Konggres Amerika Serikat itu berkunjung ke Taiwan. Nah, kami merasakan narasumber yang penting adalah dari Hudson Institute yang telah mengundang mantan CIA, ya kan, mantan direktur CIA yaitu Mike Pompeo. Hudson Institute ini adalah think tank dari Amerika Serikat, dari konservatif Amerika Serikat, ya kan, yang telah mengundang Mike Pompeo, mantan direktur daripada CIA ini.
Kami sangat tertarik karena itu yang menjadi salah satu acuan yang dipakai oleh Pelosi sebagai Ketua Kongres Amerika, ya, terindikasi sekali ya bahwa dia mendengarkan apa yang dipresentasikan oleh Michael Pompeo ini. Jadi mari kita ikuti dulu isi daripada yang penting-penting aja ya, isi daripada presentasi daripada Michael Pompeo ini yang ada kaitannya dengan alasan kunjungan daripada mengapa dilakukan kunjungan oleh Ketua Kongres Amerika Serikat yaitu Pelosi ke Taiwan bulan Agustus ini. Oke?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is John Walters. I'm President, CEO of Hudson Institute. I want to thank all the members of the diplomatic corps that are here. There are many supporters of Hudson. Some of my colleagues are here as well, and some members of the press. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Most of all, I want to thank Secretary Pompeo for making these remarks today on this important topic. Remarks before we conclude. My brief job is to introduce a man whose career in public service is not brief, is long, and is continuing. We are honored that Secretary Pompeo agreed to join Hudson as a distinguished fellow after serving as the 70th Secretary of State. He began his career in public service at West Point, finishing first in his class. He stood the line in the Cold War to deter the Soviet Union from our allies and on our own homes. He left military service and went to Harvard Law School and became a successful lawyer and a successful businessman, and then returned to serve his country after that success in representing the state of Kansas for almost 4 terms in the United States House of Representatives. And then he left that to become the 70th Secretary of State at a time when he helped to craft a rethinking about the dangers from the communist regime in China including the brave announcement of the facts that the communist regime in China was committing genocide against words designed to reshape for the better the landscape of security in the Middle East. That too is ongoing and continues to bear fruit. So this is a man who has given us security in the past, opportunities in the future, and we're eager to hear his remarks today on war, the Ukraine, and a global alliance for freedom. So it's my pleasure to introduce my friend, Mike Pompeo.
John, thank you. It is great to be here with you today. It's great to be here at the Hudson Institute. To those of you from the Ambassador's Corps, thank you for being here, honored guests and friends. It's an honor to greet you. I consider it an enormous responsibility to speak to you about a matter of the utmost urgency and significance. It involves war, Ukraine, and the necessity of forming a new global alliance for freedom, which must contest both Russian and Chinese aggression. I must contest both Russian and Chinese aggression. I last had the privilege of meeting with President Zelensky in January 2020. How different the world seemed then. But unlike the presidency that the Trump administration followed, America did not hesitate in supplying Ukraine with weapons such as the Javelin, which broke the back of Russia's armored advance to Ukraine's capital. I looked back at this as I was preparing for the speech. At the joint press conference with President Zelensky, your nation's heroic president thanked the Trump administration for our support of Ukraine in the war in the Donbass and your efforts to reclaim Crimea. Let's start at the beginning. Ukraine must be free, and freedom requires strength and dignity. To be secure, Ukraine must always be a sovereign, not constrained by another nation's territorial incursions or influence. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is an inflection point in the post-Cold War politics. John referred to my time as a young soldier then serving on the then East German border. Here we are. That border still challenged, the European front attacked. So what does this say? What does this portend for Europe? How does this war affect Russia's affiliation with China and that country's actions with respect to Taiwan? And what lessons must we draw for our security and for our freedom throughout the entirety of the world? Russia's power has exceeded its wisdom, which itself must rest on decency if wisdom is to be meaningful at all. There will be repercussions for this calamitous war. This calamitous war results from the change in perception of Vladimir Putin, and that begins with mechanisms of conquest being allowed to feed on Europe's and the world's demands for natural gas and other hydrocarbons. The greater part of Russia's federal budget continues to be funded by its energy sector, which rests on oil, coal, and natural gas revenue. Comprehending that Russia is in inexplicable decline due to its endemic corruption and its demographic collapse, Putin, in order to secure his own rule, covets that natural gas and coal of the Donbass and Ukraine's untouched oil fields that he may be open to fracking. Also sought are Ukraine's warm water ports and the pipelines Putin seeks to permanently control, including those with access to China. It is my conviction that America and the West must acknowledge the centrality of hydrocarbon energy to the world geopolitics and indeed to humanity's ability to adapt. A cornerstone of life. Adaptation results from prosperity, which is made possible through the use of fossil fuels. The present administration has a different approach. They assert that America's energy producers gouge and must produce more fuel all at the same time. Today's obscene fuel prices should stimulate increased output, but for the fact that our government's degrowth policies stand in the way. Central to America's place in the world and our support of Ukraine is that these radical policies must be eradicated. If we're to regain our energy dominance, which we must, we must eliminate these policies. Russia and China understand this. Many advanced countries, however, do not, for we've become enraptured by unreal narratives. Thank you, Greta. This war is a clarion call. Energy and economic security, along with military strength, are the pillars upon which geostrategic power and peace rest. Energy is the fundamental basis for everything we consume. If energy prices spiral further, the economies of every nation will fragment, leading to massive worldwide recession and to authoritarian regimes coalescing their power in a time of turmoil and political strife. Indeed, if Russia is allowed dominion over the Donbass and Ukraine's coast, Putin will next seek to control the energy resources of other independent countries as well that were once part of this Soviet empire. Russia will become a juggernaut, dominating fossil fuels in addition to its present lead in supplying nuclear power plants to recipient nations. This will serve and can serve as citadels to which Russian military forces may be deployed without any notice or any warning. This is what's at stake. Nothing less. Had the current administration maintained American energy dominance rather than prostrate itself to radicals, America could have led the way in securing the world's hydrocarbon needs during this war. But because America has abdicated this vital role, the war in Ukraine is compounding the pain that consumers are feeling today and to drive their vehicles. Farmers in Kansas can't fuel their tractors, fertilizer. 300% increase in cost to help continue to feed the world. Again, I ask, why does this matter to hardworking Americans? I've given many reasons, but it's in part because if Russia controls Ukraine's energy, today's ruinous prices of the pump will be remembered as a type of cheap gas. Contrary to Russian propaganda, Ukraine has always maintained its own. Moving past our current geostrategic focus, the United States must help in building of the 3 lighthouses for liberty. These beacons should be centered on nations that have great strife: Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. They can be the hubs of new security architecture that links alliances of free nations globally, reinforcing the strengths of each member state. In time, linking these 3 bastions with NATO, as well as the new and expanded security framework for the Indo-Pacific, will form a global alliance for freedom. This will benefit America. The need for this network of alliances is patent and cannot come too soon. The world has become too small for free countries to not be part of something greater, which will forestall armed conflict rather than react to it. I'll close today. By aiding Ukraine, we undermine the creation of a Russian-Chinese axis bent on exerting military and economic hegemony in Europe, in Asia, and in the Middle East. This would further devastate the lives of Americans and our economy here at home. Indeed, by empowering Ukraine, we demonstrate to China the cost of invading Taiwan, or frankly exerting its influence in nations all across the world, thus helping to thwart an assault that would rupture the living standards of the world by crippling supplies of goods such as semiconductors in the Indo-Pacific. China's stated intent is to displace the United States as the world's preeminent power. At the height of the global health catastrophe that it created, the Chinese Communist Party did not moderate its objectives. Instead, it accelerated them. With utter disregard of its commitments to the United Kingdom and to the people of Hong Kong, China broke the Sino-British Joint Declaration. The declaration constituted a treaty, granting Hong Kong a high degree of autonomy. China was obligated to remain this through 2047. We all know what has followed. It did not. And given China's actions in matters of world health, biosafety, Hong Kong, we have to ask ourselves, on what important document is China's signature meaningful? The answer is that China's signature is authentic, is that of the Russian signature on the 1994 Budapest Memorandum, in which Russia guaranteed Ukraine's territorial integrity in exchange for Kyiv's elimination of its nuclear arsenal. We must not ever allow the communist model for development to proliferate, for it's a kleptocracy. It is autocratic rule by thieves, as is demonstrated by the magnitude of China's theft of American intellectual properties and the millions of jobs that flew in Ukraine. Part of the answer is that every president since Truman believed Taiwan's existence is crucial to America's defense. I believe that with all my heart. The 1970 Taiwan Relations Act requires that we maintain Taiwan's defensive abilities to thwart an attack. But we're now in danger of becoming complacent. The capture of Taiwan would grant the following objectives to Beijing. It would severely reduce American influence in the Indo-Pacific. America's status as a superpower would be placed in jeopardy, which would invite armed conflict, affecting our nation directly. It would eliminate a primary technological and economic partner of the United States. It's the principal supplier of high-end semiconductors to the United States economy. Were these supplies to be disrupted, America's economy would falter and our security here at home would be at risk. It would also remove the key strategic choke point to a Chinese military breakout, which would threaten the entirety of the Indo-Pacific, including Guam, Hawaii, Japan, and Australia. So our approach to promoting the Indo-Pacific security was to believe that our relationship with Taiwan should be reinforced at every turn. It's become a shining example in Taiwan of democracy for Asian peoples, and a hope to all of Asia. And it is my steadfast view that our government should immediately confer diplomatic recognition to Taiwan, for it is a free and sovereign country. Our recognition of Taiwan should not hinge on what will occur. Taiwan's already an independent country. Our government should simply reflect that fact. This is central to helping us in Europe as well, because central to the economic well-being of American families is a United States that leads. It leads all across the world, both in military and in economic power. We must use our strengths prudently, our found.
Nah, ini adalah pandangan ya. Ini adalah pandangan daripada Mike Pompeo, ya kan? Di mana Mike Pompeo tersebut kan adalah mantan daripada CIA di eranya Presiden Donald Trump ya. Nah, dan juga Secretary of State ya di zaman itu. Nah, sekarang ini dia kan menjadi narasumber yang diundang oleh Hudson Institute, ya kan? Nah, di mana Hudson Institute ini emang nampaknya konservatif sayap kanan ya. Kan ada kebebasan dong di Amerika mau pakai afiliasi kemana, ya kan? Nah, dan intisarinya daripada yang dibicarakan oleh Mike Pompeo adalah berkaitan dengan liberty, merdeka, freedom, gitu. Itu yang dia utarakan ya. Nah, dia bilang juga sesuai dengan konstitusi daripada Amerika Serikat. Itu versinya Pompeo ya. Nah, selanjutnya Pompeo itu mengatakan bahwa dia berpengalaman selama ini itu bahwa membahayakan adalah karena dia menggunakan istilah kayak juggernaut gitu. Nah, juggernaut itu dikatakan terkait dengan Rusia yang hendak menguasai ladang fossil fuel ya di daerah Eropa tersebut. Nah, itu dia harus mencegah menurut Mike Pompeo itu harus dijaga oleh Amerika Serikat, oleh administrasi yang berkuasa di Amerika Serikat. Itu yang dia katakan. Dan termasuk dia juga mengatakan bahwa Republik Rakyat Cina itu jangan sampai menguasai Taiwan ya kan, dengan pengertian bahwa dia juga mengatakan bahwa dia menghormati kemerdekaan independen daripada Taiwan. Tapi kan Taiwan itu satu teritori daripada Republik Rakyat Cina menurut Cina, ya kan, menurut Republik Rakyat Cina. Begitu juga polisi daripada Amerika Serikat sebenarnya kan adalah juga bahwa dia mengandung one policy, artinya one China policy, yaitu yang diakui secara konstitusi atau secara hukum internasional hanyalah Republik Rakyat Cina. Dia tidak mengakui Taiwan, ya kan. Nah, sehingga tapi dia mengatakan bahwa Taiwan itu sangat penting karena apa? Karena banyak semikonduktor yang diimport atau diekspor dari Taiwan ke Amerika Serikat. Sehingga menurut dia adalah sangat penting bagi Amerika Serikat untuk mempertahankan keamanan security daripada Taiwan tersebut. Dari Dari menurut versinya Mike Pompeo ya, dari penjajahan kekuasaan daripada Partai Komunis Republik Rakyat Cina. Itu versinya Pompeo. Makanya kita lihat bahwa di sini dia membagi 3 tuh house slide ya, dia bilang dari penjajahan kekuasaan daripada Partai Komunis Republik Rakyat Cina. Itu versinya Pompeo. Makanya kita lihat bahwa di sini dia membagi 3 tuh house slide ya, dia bilang, yaitu house slide-nya yaitu satu di Timur Tengah. Itu dia bilang Israel itu yang harus menjadi base kekuatan daripada Amerika, dan juga kalau di Eropa itu kekuatan yang dia sebagai lighthouse itu yang harus dijadikan kekuatan Amerika adalah Ukraina, Dan kalau di daerah Laut Cina Selatan, nah itu Taiwan, dia mengatakan Taiwan sebagai satu base, ya kan? Dan itu dia malah mengusulkan agar membuka hubungan diplomatik dengan Taiwan. Nah di sini kan kurang lebih pandangan-pandangan dia nih sebagai think tank ya, maksudnya sebagai pemikir yang memasukkan representasi dia 1 bulan yang lalu ya di depan Hudson Institute, ya kan. Nah kurang lebih begitu, dia sadar bahwa hal tersebut tuh katanya emang memerlukan perjuangan, sehingga dia bilang di Ukraina kan artinya seperti Joe Biden bilang tidak akan melibatkan tentara Amerika Serikat, namun menurut dia harus dibantu dengan persenjataan yang canggih, ya kan, untuk berhadapan dengan Rusia tersebut, gitu kan. Jadi apa sih yang hendak dikejar? Nampaknya dari presentasinya dia tetap menghendaki adanya dominasi Amerika Serikat, ya kan, terhadap politik secara global, 1. Nomor 2, ekonomi security yang harus ditunjukkan dengan militer yang kuat, dan juga energi. Makanya dibilang budget daripada Rusia ini sekarang ini adalah mengandalkan kepada fuel fossils, batu bara, gas alam. Karena apa? Karena menurut dia Rusia itu akan menggunakan itu sebagai tekanan geopolitik terhadap negara di Eropa Barat yang membutuhkan gas alam tersebut maupun batu bara, ya kan. Tapi kan batu bara sebenarnya sudah ditinggalkan ya, karena merusak polusi. Artinya polusi dunia itu dirusak dengan batu bara, ya kan, sehingga dicarilah alternatif energi, ya kan. Nah itu kurang lebih pandangan-pandangan dia. Jadi dia ingin, 1, dia tetap ingin adanya dominasi ada di menjadi super power lah, ya kan. Dan dia harus mencegah adanya Euro-Asia tadi. Artinya Euro-Asia, kekuatan daripada Rusia di Eropa terhadap sumber daripada sumber gas alamnya, ya, fuel fossils, ya kan. Dan juga kalau di daerah Asia itu dia bilang perlu dibantulah Taiwan, jangan sampai Taiwan itu diduduki oleh Republik Rakyat Cina, sehingga berdasarkan pembuka Konggres Amerika yaitu Pelosi melakukan kegiatan kunjungan di Taiwan pada saat ini, di mana dunia ini kan udah sulit nih dengan adanya pandemi itu kan, banyak sudah ekonominya yang pada anjlok, ya kan, gara-gara pandemi, stay at home, tidak bisa mobilitas dari satu negara ke negara lain, ya kan. Nah itu kan ditambah lagi sekarang dengan adanya krisis war di Ukraina tersebut antara Rusia dan Ukraina, dan juga yang nampaknya menjadi dijadikan semacam menyulut Cina supaya bisa marah, gitu kan, ya kan. Nah sebagaimana kita lihat akhirnya Republik Rakyat Cina menunjukkan kemarahannya dengan mengirim kapal terbang jetnya itu melewati Taiwan, ya kan, dan juga dia mengirim missile-nya itu ke beberapa titik di sekeliling pulau Taiwan tersebut. Nah di sini maka menimbulkan pro dan kontra, ya kan. Di dunia ini terjadi lagi polarisasi, di mana kurang lebih misalnya Pakistan dan Rusia itu mendukung drill latihan daripada Republik Rakyat Cina di sekitar pulau Taiwan tersebut, ya kan. Nah kita lihatlah perkembangannya, tapi intisarinya untuk menjawab pertanyaan kenapa kok Pelosi itu sebagai ketua Konggres Amerika itu kan pejabat tinggi tuh. Jadi kan belum ada selama ini pejabat tinggi yang berkunjung ke sana, ya kan, ke Taiwan, ya kan. Nah itu kan tentunya menjadi satu masalah yang memanaskan suasana, ya kan, di daerah Asia Tenggara yang kebetulan kita kan sebenarnya karena Indonesia letaknya di dekat area situ, makanya Indonesia juga menghendaki adanya perdamaian, ya kan, dan meminta kepada negara-negara adidaya yang ada masing-masing itu menahan diri, jangan membuat provokasi. Nah sehingga tindakan seperti Pelosi ini dianggap tindakan provokasi. Itu juga dikatakan oleh Sky News ya, dari Australia yang kita sudah dengar di permulaan video rekaman kami ini. Mungkin sekian dulu ya pandangan kami terkait dengan kunjungan Pelosi ke Taiwan. Pelosi sebagai Ketua Konggres Amerika Serikat ke Taiwan baru-baru ini, yaitu bulan Agustus ini, sehingga akhirnya membuat semacam provokasi lah kepada negara Republik China, dan terbukti bahwa Republik China mengadakan drill, ya kan, beberapa hari ini, ya kan, mengirim missile-nya ke beberapa titik di sekeliling Taiwan tersebut dan mengirim kapal terbangnya, ya kan, karena menurut versi Republik Rakyat Cina ini adalah intern Republik Rakyat Cina, ya kan, jadi jangan negara luar ikut campur atas masalah intern daripada Republik China, di mana Republik China bilang kurang lebih Taiwan merupakan bagian daripada Republik Rakyat Cina. Itu menurut versi Republik Rakyat Cina. Oke, sekian dulu.
Terima kasih banyak atas kunjungannya. Sampai berjumpa di episode berikutnya.